All right, good evening, everybody. Let's do a quick audio check. Let me know if everything is fine. What's up, Nabula? What's up, Tiger? What's up, Klaus? How are we doing today? All right, what's up, man? Let's get. We've got quite a lot to discuss today. Let's get everything in line. That weekly, the monthly. All right, let's see. The view apps you use custom, asking me, I'm curious how you get that previous value extension. Yeah, they're custom made, man. They're in-house indicators. But I think there's plenty of indicators on TradingView who are public that extend value. What's up, Cirkin? No, I don't manually draw them. It's a extension of the indicator. Bitcoin. So these are the pairs that we're going to be covering today. We're going to go over Bitcoin, Ethereum. I want to briefly go over Hype, XPL, and Aster as well, because I think, these are going to be interesting, especially if they're going to get some retracements across the board. Hype is coming off a very important pivot, which is the yearly developing value area high. I posted about this on Twitter. So we're going to talk about this briefly to see what we can do. This stream is in particular really important because we will have a new quarterly value and a new previous month value within 2 days. So yeah, there's going to be some really good high time frame rotations, including altcoins and Bitcoin. Simon is asking if we're getting time and space above value area high or yearly value VWAP. I mean, we're actually getting acceptance back within developing value. So don't worry, I'll be going over everything. And I'll try to keep it as straightforward as possible, where we can just, cruise through the analysis without having too much typing, etc. So let's give it a minute and then we'll kick it off. BTC there. All right. Then we've got the levels on ETH. Yeah, we got everything. All right. Okay. First things first. I'm gonna keep this stream a buck. It's gonna be straightforward. We're not gonna be writing everything out. I'm just going to go over all of the concepts. I'll be doing an educational way of analyzing the charts using VWAP, market profile, regular price action. If you have questions in regards to the the coins or the analyze or, the sections that we're covering based on VWAP or TPO, do let me know in the chat. I'll make sure to answer the questions at the end of the stream. This stream is sponsored by Bybit, so if you do want to support the channel and if you do want to have bonuses, you can sign up on the referral link, which is going to be posted in the description below, so make sure you check that out. And then without further ado, let's dive straight in. Now, as you guys know, I always start off with TPO. So right here, we've got a market profile layout. We've got daily normal profiles, we've got composites here, and then we have the weekly profiles, and then we've got the monthly profiles here. Let's start off with the monthly, because I think the monthly profile is going to be the most important one here, especially considering that, we can already see it, that Bitcoin, it is not necessarily a surprise that we're finding a low here. Is this going to be the low before we're getting new highs, or, is this going to be the low before we're accepting back above quarterly value? Who knows? But it is support for a reason. Now, where is this particular level coming from? Well, let's zoom out. Let's get this back in its own profile like that. And let's zoom out a bit more. So as you can see, this has been the dynamic, right? Bitcoin forms value within, these are 2 months, undo all merges within the profile, right? We had 2 months of overlapping value. Bitcoin accepted above, and then it went from a balanced environment towards an imbalanced up environment, right? That's bullish. Then we formed another 2 months of value. We broke away from value, and now we're basically pinched between the most recent value area low at 112 and the older 2-month value area high around 109-ish, right? Now, if we were to merge these again with each other, we have the 2-month composite value area high. And then if we were to expand this again, we can clearly see that rotation, right? This was bearish, where we got time and space above that recent 2-month value area low. This should have held a support for a move higher into these highs, potentially that point of control there. We didn't do it, right? We accepted below. I was looking for shorts up here, never gave me the pullback. It went straight to that 2-month value area high where we're currently finding a low. Now that's what I want to be aware of, and this is a level that I have on my chart. So that is support, this is resistance. Now, moving forward, we can also see that if we're taking a look here, let's get this back in right there. If we're taking a look at the weekly like that, we can also see that that 5 months or that 2 months, right, is basically this weekly composite, right? Now, we can fine tune it all we want. It's still the same level, and we can clearly see that we are finding support here. It's confluent with an older 2-week value area low as well. I don't necessarily have this exact level on my price action chart because I'm only going to be using the monthly. But so far, right, Bitcoin is still within value. It is trying to accept back within the a bit recent 2-week value. But is this going to be sustainable where if we form a low here for continuation higher? I don't really think so, because we've got something really important up here. And we'll go over that once we reach towards the VWAP section of this this video. Now, getting this back right here, moving towards the recent developments. And for that, I want to go towards the bottom pane. This is the pane that I tend to use for my composites. We are currently trading near an older composite, right? If we were to get this all in the screen, again, right, Bitcoin is forming value. It goes imbalance up, trend starts, right? When the trend starts to chill for a bit, we go back towards a balanced environment. We accept above the composite, go imbalance up. That's the dynamic. That dynamic changed when we had, let's undo this, undo all merges. When we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 days of overlapping value. These 10 days is what we refer to as a 10-day composite. Now, whenever Bitcoin forms a 5-day and up composite, and we break away from value, it is not going to be just a minor pullback, right? Whenever we form such an amount of value up here and we accept below, it is going to be the trend for a while. And as we can see, right, Bitcoin is within balance. We accept below the composite value area low. This becomes the bearish line in the sand, right? And we continue to go imbalance down. This is a imbalanced market. Then we go back towards a balanced market, right? Where we form a 2-day composite here. Then we break away from value once again, imbalance down. So the trend is clearly lower, right? Now, the reason why we're finding a low here is because this is where the market has previously accepted as fair value. That's what we're currently seeing, right? We're seeing an older 3-day composite. These are 3 days merged together. And then right now we're just consolidating here, confluent with that monthly value area high. We're currently in the process of making a poor high there. We still have some single prints here, and then we've got an older 4-day composite value low here at 110-ish, at 110.8 is our line in the sand here. This specific level is confluent with the upcoming previous quarterly value area low, meaning this is going to be a bearish line in the sand for me, right? So as long as we cannot really accept above, it's going to be bearish. Key takeaways here. If we were to merge everything together, what we've just set on TPO, let's get everything within the screen like that. In terms of anomalies, we've got single prints above left to be filled. We are potentially going to be retesting a bearish line in the sand, which is a older 4-day composite. The reason why we can't really break lower here is because of that 2-month value area high, right? And then we've got anomalies in the form of a poor high and a poor low. So whichever comes first, let's say that we, start to sweep this, it's going to be a good mean reversion if we get the triggers that we want to see. And it also lines up with some more downside in case we want to clean up some of these lows into these equal lows here. Because let's be honest, this is not a low that I'm super confident in where I'm like, oh yeah, this is this is a good selling tail, right? Or a buying tail here. This is what we need to see for continuation for a mean reversion higher again. So that's basically a wrap for me on TPO. We've got the anomalies. We are seeing buyers stepping in here. We are pinched between an older monthly value area low and a much older monthly value area high. Am I interested in looking for trades in the middle of this section? No, not really. So let's take a look at VWAP, because we need to take a look here at VWAP to fine tune this a bit more. Now, if we're taking a look here at VWAP, I think the most important takeaway here is from the yearly and the quarterly. Now let's start off with the yearly. Oops, let's start off with the yearly here. The yearly has been retesting that year. Let's get this up here. So this is the yearly developing value, right? We accept it back within developing value. The next likely destination becomes developing year VWAP. We accept above developing year VWAP. We get the reversion towards the value high. And this was the point where we go from a balanced environment within developing value towards imbalance. That means any consolidation or a structural, for example, a swing failure or a market structure break can be seen as a buying opportunity coming off this level, right, towards the previous year standard deviation 3, potentially standard deviation 2 on the developing, right? So those were all good locations to look for a potential trade. Now, this is what I don't really like. This dotted line here is the previous year standard deviation 3 from 2024, yeah? So this was resistance. Then we broke through it cleanly. We formed a gap. We had some sort of, a retest here. Then we had a deviation, accepted back above right here, a nice structural break. This should have been a shallow consolidation, in my opinion, before continuation higher. That would have been bullish. This full retracement back into the developing year value, whilst still being support, is a bit worrisome to me. I don't really like that when Bitcoin isn't able to, to really break away from value. The level that I have my eye on here based on the yearly is this previous year standard deviation 3. It is confluent with the final up close candle before we had this large displacement lower. This is a bearish order block, right? We've got a fair value gap there. We do have equal lows here, and we do have daily support down here as well. So everything kind of lines up for me for a higher time frame rotation lower. And then the invalidation for that, where I think, okay, the low might be in, is if we can get a clean break above this high. Because that would mean that we're coming off developing year value high. We have a market structure break towards the upside, at which I think these equal highs are going to be next into this gap here, okay? So the yearly, it is coming off support, but context here around it is telling me, okay, we need to be a bit cautious here and look at the other time frames, for example, the quarterly and the monthly, to see if we can fine tune the structures a bit more in terms of trades, right, that we want to be taking going into the fourth quarter of the year. So that being said, let's take a look at the quarterly value. Let's get this back in its place. Quarterly value. Now, for those of you who don't know it yet, quarterly VWAP is my preferred time frame. I think quarterly value is one of the, or if not the best time frame to look for potential trades on Bitcoin. Especially when we've got previous quarterly value and we accept above. For example, right here, where the market accepted above that previous quarterly value high, we formed a nice BV down close candle after taking out this low into daily support, right? Market structure break there. I can't make it any easier than this, right? The contextual level is quarterly value high, and the trigger purely based on price action. We swept the low. We had a displacement towards the upside, retested below the 50% of this swing point right into daily demand, and then we saw continuation higher. Beautiful. Then, for those of you who've been watching the stream, know that I was waiting for longs down here. Didn't get them, right? And then we saw the acceptance picture shift back within developing quarterly value for that rotation into developing quarterly VWAP. Consolidation, as I've said before, this should have been a shallow consolidation for upside towards the quarterly developing value high. And that was the region where I was looking for high time frame shorts back towards the lows. So weak that we couldn't even retest it, and now we're trading back below. Huge displacement candles towards the downside. And then this is the most important takeaway here. We will have a new previous quarterly value, and that is within 2 days. Meaning, within 2 days, this is going to be a static band. And that static band will probably provide the best trade going into quarter 4. Meaning, if we are not able to accept above, right? Let's say that we do this, we spike into it, maybe feel some of this inefficiency there, and then close back below. That is an indication that we're getting a failed shift back within previous quarterly value. At that point, I'm going to look for shorts and I'm going to be targeting these equal lows into this older previous quarterly value area high. So essentially the two main levels of interest for me going forward are going to be this previous quarterly value area high and the upcoming previous quarterly value area low. We are pinched between these two values, okay? Now, in an event where things get really bullish, that is when Bitcoin can accept back within previous quarterly value, which is going to be opening up the exact same trade where I'm like, okay, this is becoming a deviation. I'm going to be looking for longs down here and I'm targeting a rotation towards this high into previous quarterly value high, a VWAP, my bad. And then, right, this is what I said. If we're getting acceptance above that high, above previous quarterly VWAP, well, you know, we're going to be blasting towards these highs. So going forward, these are going to be really, really important. Let's take a look at the monthly here. So this is the quarterly, then we have the monthly. Now, the monthly has been trading relatively clean. Let's open this up within a bigger screen, right? We saw at the beginning of the month, right, it was a bit of a clusterfuck here where we couldn't really accept above. Let me get a different color, right? We couldn't really accept back within previous month value. Then all of a sudden, down close candle, large displacement towards the upside, right? Pull back towards below the 50% of that swing point, auction higher towards previous month VWAP. This was the reason as well where I was like, okay, you know, we're getting a consolidation here. I want to see Bitcoin trade towards at least 118.5 because that would line up with a bigger sweep above this high. Instead, what we did was, you know, just a really cheeky, just a cheeky sweep of this swing point, like pretty small. And then, you know, we retested this, huge flush lower. We got a tree drive structure here into previous month value low, some nice upside. And then once again, rejected at monthly VWAP. Now we're even accepting below previous month value area low, and sellers are currently stepping in at the developing value area low. So all in all, purely based on the monthly, things are not looking that good. And it shouldn't come as a surprise that we're getting, like, if we're getting a Sunday rally like we're currently getting, sellers are stepping in right here, right? Now, if you can accept back within, sure, maybe we're getting some upside back into this level, but so far it's not looking, you know, too good here for the bulls, especially with a rounded low like we currently have. Now that takes me towards the weekly. The weekly time frame. Let's go towards the 2-hour chart real quick. So the weekly time frame is in the hourly chart, might even be better. And let's get this real quick. I want to have one band history for this section right now. So the weekly, let's get this into a bigger screen, right? Large displacement away from previous week value. We then were balanced within developing value, couldn't break above developing value high, rotation lower again. This is where the market went imbalanced down right here, as we can see by this rejection here, filled in a small gap there, continuation lower, another rejection, continuation lower, another rejection, right, continuation lower there. And then we had this beautiful weekend price action where I was like, okay, I'm glad that I didn't trade this, right? Because this is just a waste of money and a waste of time indeed. Now that we're trading back within weekly developing value, should we become super bullish? Not really, because we have the monthly developing value area low down here. Monthly time frame is more important than the weekly. So all in all, I think, you know, we might be up for, you know, at least a retest there, and then we'll see how this develops, because tomorrow this becomes previous week value with a previous week VWAP, a previous week value area low here, right? And a previous week value area high. So these are going to be areas of interest to me. That being said, let's break it all down and let's put it on a regular chart, because we've now covered TPO. We've set within TPO. Let's briefly freshen up your memories. Within TPO, we've got a poor high there. We've got a poor low there. We have single prints. And the reason why we are not fully breaking down is because of this older 2-month value area high. The recent shifting condition is down on the weekly. That's bearish. So all we're basically doing is we're playing ping pong in between these two values. Is there a directional bet that I can take purely based on the recent 3 days? No. Am I going to be merging these days together? No, because of, look at how small these values are. Like this is horrific in terms of a profile segment, right? I don't want to be merging this as a composite because it's misleading in terms of a value area high and a value area low. Then quickly going over VWAP, the yearly failed to hold the standard deviation tree is back within developing value. I'm going to give this like maybe the first half of the week, right? We did the same thing here. It needs to accept above this ASAP. And for me, I would prefer to go long on a sweep of the low and then a reclaim. That will have my preference. The quarterly will close within 2 days, leaving behind a previous quarterly value area low. That's going to be my bearish line in the sand. The older previous quarterly value area high is going to be my bullish line in the sand. And then the monthly is simply confluent with quarterly value and the weekly as well. Bitcoin, regular chart. If we were to go break this down from a 12-hour time frame, right? 12-hour time frame, I would say, or maybe even the weekly, right? Purely based on structure alone. We're still making higher highs and higher lows, right? We can see that right here. Higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high. Are we super bearish here? No, not really, because we're still coming off this weekly OB there, yeah? So as long as we hold this as support, we could still expect a bullish Q4, right? But we just don't want to see a deep retracement or deeper acceptance back within the block. Now, if we take this towards the 2-day chart, we've got a previous high here, right? Previous high. All we're really doing is we're consolidating above that high. Within that high, we've got a nice beefy down close candle there, right? It's support until proven otherwise. We've got this low there. So, purely based on price action alone, I would say, well, if it shows me a sweep and then I have a market structure break towards the upside, right? Maybe forming a bullish breaker there. I think buying a retest of that is going to be good for a move towards these highs, right? Now we can fine tune that a bit more, but structurally things are looking pretty decent besides this swing failure there. That's not really that good, but structurally we're still holding above that 2-day demand. If we take back everything that we've just said, well, not take it back, but if we just fine tune it with our current drawings, 4-hour chart, this is the range that we're trading within, right? We have got, now let's just go towards the 12-hour chart, easier to see. So swing high, swing low, equal lows, and then this is that daily demand that we're just talking about. We didn't sweep these lows and then we just continued to go upwards. We then had a swing failure pattern above this previous high into fresh supply there, right? Failed to short that because I was anticipating a bit higher price on Bitcoin, maybe a fill of this gap. Unfortunately, didn't get it. We then accepted back within the previous range high, right? Then we had the consolidation. We tried to accept back above, filled in some of this inefficiency. Then we closed back below, immediate continuation lower. Now, during that process, we came off a key level. The previous standard deviation tree should have been support, as indicated by this down close candle, right? A lot of people wanted this to be a bullish order block. So everybody that went long here and are now caught offside on spot, for example, they will want to mitigate that, right? Around that breaker because we broke through this cleanly. So in my opinion, any pullback into that level is probably going to be met with some sellers. Do I think that this is a proper low? No, not yet. Even if this is going to be the actual low, that 2-month value high, and that we don't sweep these lows, I would still prefer for us to sweep this, put a bit more excess below this low, then reclaim it for longs towards the developing quarterly value area low, which is going to be the previous quarterly value low within 2 days, right? So that's a trade. Conversely, if we don't really do that, and we're getting like this slow grind upwards, right? Consolidation, sweep, reject, get back below the developing quarterly value area low. After rejecting off that previous standard deviation tree, I think a short is in place and we can start targeting this low right there. And then potentially into that daily demand. So for me, if I were to fine tune everything and if I were to choose 2 single trades, or maybe even if I were to dumb it down towards 3 trades, I would say a potential long can be taken on a sweep of this low, followed by a reclaim, right? At that point, I'm like, okay, you know what? We're coming off the 2-month value area high. We're still coming on fresh, demand here. I'm going to be taking a partial long there, and I'm going to be targeting just a quick rotation higher into the upcoming developing quarterly value area low. That's one. Trade number 2 would be, if we're getting a consolidation at the upcoming previous quarterly value low, I'll be taking a shot at a short, followed by a continuation lower there if we can trade back below the value area low for a move towards this low, and then potentially below these equal lows, right? That would be trade number 2. Trade number 3 would be my preferred trade, which is sit on the sidelines until we're getting one nasty flush lower into the previous quarterly value low that we currently have, close back above, maybe get some structural break, and then long any pullback into freshly formed demand for a move higher into that structure, and then potentially these highs. Those are my main plays heading into this week. Is that clear for everybody? Let me quickly go over the questions, and then we're gonna go forward with Ethereum and some altcoins. Strong resistance for Bitcoin unless we accept above previous monthly low. It's hard to be bullish. I agree with that. It looks like we're holding exactly rolling yearly VWAP, a value high. Yes, that is good. Well said. Time and space on the monthly. Yes, yeah, I agree. When a new weekly, monthly, or quarterly range form, does the older range lose relevance, or is it just less significant than the newer one? Yeah, in that case, the most recent development, so the most recent previous quarter value or the most recent previous month value, is gonna be super clean. That will have our preference. Good evening, Stein. Good to see you, man. Yeah, exactly. Like Grant is saying, it's the most recent one. One question about the weekly composite. Would you consider merging the past 3 weeks with the 2-week composite? They don't have any overlap, but they are in a range. Let me just quickly peek CR chart for that question. And after that, we're gonna go towards Ethereum and then some altcoins. So let's take a look. The weekly. Block right here. No, I wouldn't do that. There's too much displacement towards the upside for me to consider this as a composite. If it would have been this, for example, right, and then a weekly there, 1 week, and then the next week would have been down here, then yeah, but not 2 weeks of value trading all the way towards, this point of control there. It's a bit too much in my opinion. All right, Ethereum. Let's start off with VWAP to keep it really simple. Ethereum right here is getting really close. Let me get rid of these real quick. I want to have one band history there, like that. So starting off on the year, right? Ethereum is actually retesting the developing value area high for the first time that we broke above it. So yes, it might seem really ugly, but we have a structural pivot there in the form of a 2.5-week composite value area high. We have the developing year value area high there. We even have the previous year value high there. So in my opinion, anything here can be considered as a potential buying opportunity. Now, the best case obviously would be from a low, right? Maybe do some of this two-way trade, big flush lower. Everybody gets super bearish, right into previous year value high, reclaim the low, and then up we go. Like that's the scenario that I'm looking for on Ethereum. When we're getting this, at that point, you're looking at altcoins, what is outperforming during that time. And those are the trades that you want to be gunning with, right? Now, higher time frame bearish development would just be a clean break back below 3.4, because that's an indication that we're accepting back within developing year value. We're getting back below previous year value. All in all, that will be super bearish on the yearly. But so far, we are coming off yearly support. That's looking good. So let's take a look at the other time frames. So that's the yearly. The quarterly here, right there. So the quarterly, we accepted above previous quarterly value high, then we started the trend upwards, right? Then we failed to hold the developing quarterly value high as support, resistance. We got the rotation lower. We've got that billionaire. I don't know what he was thinking, but he was buying a fuck ton up here. Like, okay, success with that. But we got that rotation lower into the developing quarterly VWAP. Now, I tweeted on Twitter that I still call Twitter, I don't know why, but I tweeted or I posted on X, right? That I think this should be the low. The low should be here. Now, why was that? If we quickly go towards a regular chart and we take a look at ETH, where you at? ETH, right? Let's get rid of the drawings real quick and let's open up the rolling VWAPs. Let's get rid of these. I don't need those. All right. So right here, right? We've got the 90-day rolling VWAP there. Now the 90-day rolling VWAP, let's track it. 90-day rolling VWAP, 90-day rolling VWAP. Everybody's super bearish. 90-day rolling VWAP, right? So this is the 90-day rolling VWAP. Everybody was screaming for new lows when we were breaking down from this distribution up here. This is your best bang for your buck, right? This is really important though. The first interaction is always the cleanest, right? The first interaction is always the cleanest. I do not want to see Ethereum revisit this low, to be honest. Whilst we are coming off, if we were to do so, right, we would have to, at least close back above it ASAP. I honestly think that we might not even get that picture perfect trade where we sweep the lows once more into previous year value area high for continuation higher. I think the play here is basically going to be hold above 90-day rolling VWAP for a move back towards this structure here at least. And then depending on the reaction, we might go lower, right? But the trade here is that I think, we probably leave some of these bottom shorters behind and we're rebalancing these highs pretty soonish, okay? I'll go over that in a bit. Now, VWAP here, the quarterly, still holding above. That's bullish. We will have new quarterly value within 2 days, meaning previous quarterly value area low, previous quarterly VWAP, previous quarterly value area high. If we cannot hold above previous quarterly VWAP, probably going to be rotating lower, right? But until then, upside, yeah? That being said, we have confluence with the monthly value here. Nice high volume bar into previous month value area low. And this is why I'm thinking if we're getting a pullback back into previous month value area low, which is confluent with the developing quarterly VWAP, it's going to be a good buying opportunity for a move higher into at least the upcoming previous month value area low and potentially these highs, okay? Let's take a look at a regular chart. Let's bring back all the drawings. Rolling VWAP, be gone, right here. So this distribution is from a 6-week composite, right? We had 6 weeks of overlapping value. Let's get a different color there. We had 6 weeks of overlapping value, 6-week value area high, 6-week value area low. Couldn't accept above, rotation lower towards the value area low. We accepted below, immediate continuation lower towards a 2.5-week value area high from this consolidation, right? 2.5 week value high and the value area low there. So far, we are holding this as support. If we're going to look for trades heading into next week, I think that any spike back into this level, followed by a strong close above, can be a potential long for a move towards these highs into the 6-week value area low. If we lose this as support, and let's say that my alert get triggered here, right? And we start trading it and we don't close above, instead we close here. I'm not going to be looking for longs then, right? I'm just going to be waiting because at that point, I think maybe, let's get that yearly value here. Developing year, previous all the way down here. Let's just wait for this one. I think this is a bit too low, to be honest. It's in developing year value area high. Like that. So we're either going to be forming a low here, in my opinion, right? Right there. Because of the fact that this will be previous quarterly VWAP within 2 days for a continuation higher into these highs, where the real test will be this 6-week composite. Because make no mistake, even if we were to retest this, it's not going to be super bullish because it's the value area low from the last 6 weeks of this distribution, right? So that's huge resistance. If we were to form a rejection there, it's time to look for shorts again, right? Because the range that we're trading within is from that point towards that point. Now, in the case where we do form that third drive lower, this was the first one, this is the second one, and then we do something like that, right? The third sweep, and then we reclaim the 2.5 week value area high. That's a place where I'm really comfortable in taking longs again for a move towards the highs. These highs, into this breaker, into the 6-week value area low. In terms of shorts, I would only want to be focusing on shorts on a sweep above these highs. I'm not really interested in looking for those around the middle of that range. Is that clear for everybody on Ethereum? Higher time frame, we are coming off support. 90-day rolling VWAP, developing year value area high. You know, I think as long as we maintain this as support, we will get that retest at the 6-week value area low. Now, failure to break above and reject here at that bearish breaker, and I will look for shorts again for a simple rotation back lower, right? So this point towards that point, and then, you know, if we're accepting below the 2.5-week composite, that's basically, you know, telling us that, okay, we're back to rotational between these two extremes right there, that range, right? But until then, I think this should just hold a support. All right, that's clear. Moving forward, right? Because some of the new shiny coins, how do we trade them? What am I looking at? Let's start with this one right now. We've got Aster. They had the ticker before this, right? Because they basically rebranded. I'm not sure if we can see all of that data within TradingView, but what I do think is going to be very important, especially on this pair here, is because we will have new weekly value. We don't have yearly value here. We don't have quarterly value there. We don't have monthly value because we simply do not have enough time on the exchange yet. Now, if we were to open this, right, weekly value, I think, and we can already see the relevance here, right? Because if we zoom in a bit more, right, no surprise that sellers are stepping in here right at that weekly VWAP. Going into next week, if you're looking for short-term trades, I genuinely think that you should be focusing on this new previous week value. If we start trading towards the lows, we try to break below and reclaim it as support, that's going to be a buying opportunity for a move back towards VWAP, right? And then acceptance above, we're trading back above. Conversely, if we accept below, this is going to be a good breakdown short for a move back towards, I don't know, maybe these lows and some other structural levels. And then ultimately, you know, if we remain range bound within this weekly profile, right? A failed auction above after cleaning up the highs, followed by acceptance back below, also bearish, right? So I'm just going to be playing this rotation until proven otherwise. Now, to show you an example of that, we had this one, super clean. Look, where was it? I want to have from 1, 2, 3, maybe four bands ago. VWAP, 4 bands, history, like that. No, not really. Just don't do that. It's too noisy. 1. No, let's just 2. 2. I think 2 should do it. I need this one to extend. Yeah, perfect. All right. Right. Simple as it can be. 30-minute time frame. You know, that's my preferred time frame to look for potential trades. Right here, like that. So we got XPL here. Pre-market, right? Swept into previous week value. We then had only a week, right? Extended throughout time. We are rotational between weekly value area high, weekly value area low. Failure to break below weekly value area low, and we look for longs there. Stop below the low, and we're targeting the opposite extreme, right? Acceptance above, continuation higher, and it remains support until proven otherwise. Whoops. So this is basically a good indication. Let me just go back because the chart gets a bit too messy otherwise with 2 things. Right here, same story, right? This was when mainnet went live, when they went live, right? We got like a huge puke here into that previous week VWAP, high volume point of control at the low. We close above previous week value high. This is a long, and then the rally starts. So heading into next week, obviously this upcoming previous week value is going to be super important, because this value area high, let's say that we start trading here, you will want to see this hold a support for continuation high into that high. If we trade here and we fail to break above, right, that's when you want to be looking for potential shorts back into this VWAP. Now, let's see if we get like the monthly. We have the monthly XPL right here. Yeah, we do have the monthly. All right, let's take a look. So we're going to be having a previous month value actually on this pair, where the previous month value area high is going to be confluent with the previous week value area high, and then the previous month VWAP around 1.1 is where I think if we're getting it, Not sure if we're going to be getting it, right? Because the thesis around it is super bullish. Everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon. They're chasing shit coins on Plasma. So, you know, I think all in all, this is going to be a super outperformer. If Bitcoin continues to behave, right? That's super important. But if there's going to be a scenario where this pukes into previous month VWAP around 1.1, I want to be a buyer. Now, I'm not sure if we're getting it, right? But I just want to be mindful of in case something like that happens. Now, if we're super bullish and we start to form time and space up here, right? And we try to break back within previous month value and we can't do it, that's where you go long as well. And we're going to be targeting this previous extreme at that high and then potentially an extension of VIP or whatever, right? Towards 2 or whatever that is. So going forward on XPL, this is going to be super, super important. All right, let's get rid of the high volume bars real quick, like that. Okay, so same goes here. Aster, we covered this one, right? Yeah, we covered this one. Resistance, rotation lower, that's where I want to be a buyer. And then acceptance below will be bearish. We did that. Hype. And as you can see, same story here, hype. This is what I tweeted about, where hype continues to get buyers off the developing year value high. Continuation higher, developing year value high. Continuation higher, developing year value high. If we're getting a market structure break like that, then this becomes a bullish breaker on the yearly time frame. A pullback into that level can be considered as a potential buying opportunity for a move back into at least, let's say, this previous low. But what I want to say here is that the yearly is looking good. If we're taking a look here at the quarterly, that market structure break that I just covered on the yearly, right, would line up with a new previous quarterly VWAP, right? So if we trade above this high and then we try to retest that, this previous quarterly VWAP is then confluent with a daily bullish breaker. I want to see that hold of support. Then if we can accept back above previous quarterly value high, I think low might be in and we're going to go up, okay? Now a bearish development would be acceptance below this cluster, because this is basically the previous quarterly value low from the previous 2 quarters. So if hype cannot hold above 36, I think we're going to go way lower. At that point, I think it's going to be time to revisit 30, which is going to be the yearly VWAP. All right. Monthly, super clean interactions with the monthly, acceptance back within. Buyer stepped in at the VWAP, failed to accept above previous month value high, confluent with developing month value area low. Rejected there. Continuation lower. Buyer stepped in here. Sweep of the low. Structure break. Back into the month here. Continuation higher. And now we're holding above previous month VWAP. So, you know, all in all, some really clean rotations here. Higher time frame, it needs to hold above the developing year value high. I will allow for a bit of a range here. Let's say that we do that, right? Maybe even into that older previous quarterly value low. Perfectly fine, but we need to accept above. So let's say that we do this. We need to accept above previous quarterly value low ASAP for that. All right. So is that clear in terms of what I'm looking at for Bitcoin, Ethereum, Hype, Aster, XPL, and all the goodies? And any questions so far? If price breaks below previous quarterly value low, reclaims the range, and then retests previous quarterly value low, how can I confirm this as a valid long setup? You would basically want to be looking for a structure like this, right here, right? So we're coming into a key contextual level here, right? Let's say that you are not comfortable in getting long on this down close candle. You could do two things, right? The first one would be this, where we wait for a shift right there, right? And then a retest back into the OB here, right? This is that swing low. And at that point, we're coming off a key contextual level. We have formed bullish structure. This is where you want to be a buyer for continuation upwards, right? If we're getting that around the previous quarterly value low, that's what you want to be trading. A more aggressive approach would be where you do this. We sweep that low. Whoops. We sweep this low. We get a bullish engulfing candle there, right? And that's when you instantly go long with a stop below the low. You don't necessarily have to wait for a market structure break if you're not comfortable with that. So this is a bit more aggressive. And the reason why is because, especially within crypto, for example here, right? Let's say that you wanted to short this, right? Sweep, we got a large distance between the developing year value high and the actual high. There is no pullback into this bearish OB, into this bearish breaker, right? There's just no pullback. So sometimes you just want to be a bit more aggressive if the conditions are met, right? And you don't necessarily always have to wait for that market structure break. I haven't paying attention to Apex and their buyback program either, bro. I'm just mainly trading charts. Like, I think it's good to be aware of the fundamentals, but it's gonna be within the charts anyway. And about Apex, I don't know, man. I read about it on Twitter, and I think it's good. It's a good first step. But what you want to see, what I need to see as well, is when they really can start pushing volume, is when they do like stuff like Aster, where you get more incentives from people to actually trade on there, so they get more revenue, and at that point you get that flywheel, right? More people trade, more buybacks. More people trade, more buyback, and at that point, it's gonna go up. Like, it's certainly gonna go up. Because I think the market cap of that is now 300 mil or something. 300 million, stuff like that. And if you compare Apex with Aster, right? I don't know if you've been trying to trade on Aster, but that's dog shit, bro. Like, orders not going through, not seeing orders, not being able to withdraw, not being able to do anything. Now, and if you compare that with Apex, for example, like, they actually have a working product. Now, if Ben can push the same narrative as CZ is pushing for Aster, then I think it's going to be doing really well. But again, they need to lure in those traders for the buyback program to really get off the ground, right? Because right now, people are definitely trading on there, but they need to be more people. And people, at the end of the game, people just want to have money, and they want to have free money. And that's what Aster is doing really well, where, with the points and the stuff like that. I don't know how people trade on there again, because I think it's super shit. But it's one of the worst, dexes that I've been trading on for the last week, where I'm like, holy shit, bro. Yeah, I mean, could be a really good play. 100%. All right. That is a wrap. I would like to thank everybody for their time. We did Bitcoin, Ethereum, Aster, XPL, and Hype. Let's see what we get going into next week. Things are looking pretty good. If we're going to get a bullish Q4, you guys now know which levels that need to hold. And yeah, I will see you guys next week. And I'll make sure. Oh, by the way, I'm gonna be doing more videos this week on YouTube. I was super busy last week, trying to get my head around everything that's that's occurring right now. But I'm gonna do a bit more update videos for you in terms of Bitcoin. All right, take care, guys. Have a fantastic Sunday. See ya.